engravers. This is Justin here, and this is another video in the Engraving Challenge for June 2020. We are looking at Amy Beach's Romance, and this is an entry by Dominic Irving. One thing I want to point out right off the top, that this is one of the few that was actually done in Lily Pond. So you can see some very interesting choices because of that software. Some of the default things that Lily Pond does, you're going to see that's apparent in this version. Obviously the font is the default font from Lily Pond. And just some various default things that Lily Pond does differently than the other programs, obviously with input from the engraver. So let's start by looking at the piano part. I'm just going to start like I always do by checking on our sizes. So we got 6 millimeters there and 5 millimeters there. That's pretty typical, though again, that's a little bit small for piano. If we can get away with 6.5 or 7 would be better. This entry does use the full size of 9 by 12 inches. So it does actually feel a little bit too roomy in places. Just for an example, right on this first page, look how roomy these systems are. They got a lot of distance, and a lot of distance in some of these cases between the staffs. But horizontally, it looks quite nice. But again, maybe you could bump that up by even 0.5 millimeter, and it would help. Just make it a little bit bigger. So let's just start at the top and work our way down. This edition does use the 3/8 together from the original, which is fine. If you want to keep that, we'll keep it consistent. Subtle thing here, this is actually a flat beam when it shouldn't be. This should actually be angled upward. And the bottom of the beam should hit the bottom of the line, while the top of the beam should hit the top of the line. So there isn't any wedges, but at least there's a bit of an angle to show the direction. This is a nice touch here with the line showing the continuity of melody. This is also good too, splitting that dotted quarter across the middle of the bar. That's very nice. Same here, splitting that here and splitting this beam, which is really tricky. This is a little bit strange, this beam angle here, because you have this really sharp corner as a result. It's actually an acute angle, and you don't actually want to have that as a matter of practice. And also this stem here on the F sharp is very short. One way to alleviate that would be to do something like this, right? Have the beam a little bit shallower, and it's okay to have the longer stem here. And that makes this short stem make more sense even, but you could probably extend the whole thing up even a bit more than that. Since this is Lily Pond, most of the default engraving is actually pretty good. So I'm just going to nitpick a little bit on a few things here. So this is not ideal. The tip just ending on a staff line like that. Where it should end is right there. Right in the middle of the staff space that's above. Same here. The trick with this one, of course, is that there's no real angle to that slur, but that's okay. It's still very readable. And the same applies for ties here. You see how the ties don't quite get all the way down. So either they need to get all the way down into the white space, or they need to be entirely within the space. Like here, where they're entirely in the space. One thing I would consider doing, and I'm not sure how to do this in the Lily Pond, I'm sure there's a setting for it, is just make your slurs a little bit thicker. The they in general tend to be quite thin, which, some people would call that a little bit more graceful. They match the ties a lot better. But it just strikes me as a little bit too thin compared to like the really nice chunky beams and stem lengths or the stem thicknesses and all that. And again, here shouldn't end right in a line. It's gotta hit. If I was to draw this, it's got to hit right about there, 1/2 space above the line, as if it was a space inside the staff. And then after it gets above the staff, there's no restriction there. And this is really nice too. The slurs going down below right note head to note head, that's really nice. All right, let's keep going. I find it a little bit interesting that you decided to split this here, but then not split this here. I understand the argument for not splitting this here because it's a consistent syncopation, so it's fine. I just find that quite interesting. This is all good. Again, there's that beam problem, and the reason that beam issue happens is because there's a traditional rule with beaming where if you have two notes of the same letter name, right, that don't move space by space or line or whatever, then the beam is supposed to be flat over them. That's not a hard and fast rule, but this looks strange to me, especially this one where you have two different lengths of the same note, this different lengths of the stem. So I would definitely consider revising that angle a little bit. Not sure why this slur is floating so far above. Get that one in there. There's enough room, you can do it. Same here. Boop, get that one right in there. These I would probably flip. That's a subtle thing. But when you have a dot like that on a note, you would definitely want the dot to be further away from any conflicting notes. So this is the correct direction if there was no dot here. But since there is, I would probably flip those. And what I mean by flip is horizontally. Right? So have the B actually to the right. Also, that will help a little bit with the alignment here because this B is quite far away from where it actually starts. If you look here. Okay. Let's keep going. So I would be careful here. This is quite far apart compared to like down here. And that looks kind of funny. And this hairpin, there's quite a bit of white space on either end of it, so I would definitely condense those staffs a little bit. Or make them consistent across the whole page. This is an interesting choice of symbol. Definitely seen things like that before. I don't know if that would be understood, because what you really mean is like con pedale throughout. Not sure about that choice of symbol. This is a little subtle thing. Those slur tips need to get right in there on top, and it's obviously being raised up because of the sharp there. Just don't be afraid to get them right in there. Get them snuggling. And here too, get it right in there. The more you get those slur tips in there, the easier it is. It's going to be to read what note that the slur applies to, and it gets really tricky in situations where you get chords. So be careful of that. Also right here, again, that's really subtle, but it needs to be half a space if we're going to get picky on it. All right. But overall, this is really great. This is very nice, except for the fact that it's too roomy. Like, it could be a lot denser because of the staff size. All right. Okay, so over here we got beams. Like I said before, I would definitely adjust these beams so that the bottom and the top respectively. Same here. I know this is an old-fashioned rule to have them all be flat, but I don't think it's practiced that much anymore. Especially since you have an ability here to easily show the shape of the line. This is the thing I've said in a couple other evaluations with these slurs and the ties. Make sure you match the arc, right? So again, these need to be half a space apart, and then match the arc of that tie, and then once you get it free of it, go for it all the way down. It's not a great example, but you know what I mean. And here I would give just a little bit more space on that guy, on that natural there. This is good. These stems are a bit short here. These ones, I would give some more space on those. That's something that Lily Pond likes to really cannibalize stem length for some reason. I don't know why that is. So maybe that's just a default thing, part of the engine. Here again, get it right in there. This is really nice, this slur here. The only thing is I would get it again right in the middle. Get it right in the middle of the staff space. Not a big fan of this dotted line because it doesn't really look like a dotted line. It looks like a bunch of weird tenuto markings or something. So like I would actually make this much tighter dotted line. If you're going to make a dotted line, that is. You could also get away with doing this without a line at all, and it would still be, you know, totally apparent. I think this is a really nice job here of making the tempos actually large Roman type. That's really nice. It's nice to see some editions editing that. Make your slurs here. Again, this is just more of the same stuff. Whoops. Make your slurs consistent here, so there, and then the same thing here. Make it start right there, and then go, and I'll come all the way down. This horrible drawing, but I'm using a mouse here. All right, and we have footnotes. Manuscript implies two voices here with use of ties. That's very nice. Manuscript gives this note as D natural, but musical context requires D sharp. Yeah, I guess it is. I don't know about that one. I'm going to give a question mark. We might want to check the manuscript on that one. I'm not familiar. Also here, this needs to be like that, and I believe you need one like this. The original had a slur there. Just a note about footnotes like this. I wouldn't like mix symbols like this with the star and the one, because that's just not. It's confusing. What you should do is either stick with numbering footnotes or symbol footnotes, but not both. And the symbol footnotes, which I tend to prefer in musical manuscripts, because numbers are used for all sorts of other things. So the symbols are really conspicuous, and they're just used for that one thing. So it would be like an asterisk, and then a dagger, and then a double dagger, and then a double asterisk, and there's a couple other symbols in there. There's a standard hierarchy of them. I think Chicago Manual Style actually has a whole thing on that. But yeah, I would definitely do that. So get rid of these ones, right? So then this one would be a dagger like that. Dagger like that. It's kind of hard to draw, but you get the point. And get rid of this line. This line doesn't mean anything, and it's just getting in the way. I just noticed something here. All your bar numbers, they need to be left aligned to the left bar line. They shouldn't be floating out into the margin like that. That's a subtle thing. Looking here, this tie's a little bit flat. That's another thing. I'm not really a fan of Lily Pond's default style. It tends to have really flat ties. Would hope there's a way to change that. And this crescendo here, again, those dashes are not great. And this one is so short, I would just do straight up hairpin for that one. All right. This is good. Animato. This is very nice. That slur is very nice. Most other programs totally butcher a slur like that. This one, those cannot share a space. So get that out of the staff on that one. Yeah, so these slurs on the portada, they feel very flat. And they feel too far away as well. And I don't know why that is, because these are outside of the staff, so there's no restriction on having these like right next to those staccatos. They should be a half space away, just like the standard thing. If there was like a line there, a staff line, this positioning would make sense. So maybe it's just the algorithm not accounting for that it's outside the staff. But I would put all of these closer and maybe give them a little bit more curve to them. Because these are flat slurs, it looks like they're just being treated like ties. It's got the same dimensions as ties. This is all very nice, very nice. This guy, again, just a little bit more. Get it right down in there. Mentioned that before. That's good. Good, good, good. This is very good. Right there. That's very nice. Nicely done. Getting it right into that note head. And then the only thing I would say here is I'd probably make this longer. Just a little bit. Like maybe another space worth. And just extend the whole thing. Just a bit so that you have enough room there. And obviously it's an extreme jump, so there's not much you can do about that. Probably would make this a little bit less extreme, this beam as well. Long stems are okay. I think that's definitely a moral of the story here. And I think a lot of engraving programs and engravers tend to get a bit shy about that and would rather have all these shorter stems, but it's not ideal. It's better to have longer stems so that it's very obvious, where the octave lies. So like right here, here's a great example where these are too short. See that? You need to go all the way down to an octave. And then once you have your stems down there, then put in your beam. Right? And that's shortened for no good reason. Just put the full octave in there. You've got the room. Very nice. Again, we talked about this. Get it out of the staff. Same thing with all these slurs. They're just all too flat. Very nice job here. And again, if I'm going to get nitpicky, get it right in there. Right into those note heads. Got the room. These are not aligned here. You see that? So the middle, the very center of that hairpin should be aligned to the very center of that expression marking, as if they were one, continuous thought or one continuous line or whatever. Here we have more footnotes. Honestly, looking at all these footnotes, I would put them in a preface. They're not even worth really commenting on as footnotes like this because they're not really options, and this isn't like an Urtext type edition thing. Footnotes that have nothing to do with the performance of of the piece, I definitely wouldn't put in here. Like if it was an option, one or the other, and there's debate as to what to do, sure. But in this case, these are just saying, this is what it ought to be. So just put it in a preface. There's no need to put these in the score itself, in the music part. All right, this is all great. I'm going to start going a little faster here. This slur's a little not great here. I would definitely get more curve out of that guy right there. This one as well. Get it closer in there. If you really want to get in there, you can cross that stem. It's not a crime to do that, Sometimes you got to do that. This one needs to be a bit more consistent with its arc. This tie needs to be a little bit more rounded. That's a terrible example. Let's do it again. There we go. So you have a bit of this white space in here, right? You want to have a bit of that white space. Here, get that slur going all the way. Do that again. And that 3 can either live above or inside. Either way, that'll still work. I'd probably get these. This beam is a little bit angled for my taste. I'd probably do something like that instead. Gets rid of the wedges. Again, same thing. Half a space distance there. Again, here, same thing. Here's a real subtle thing. This slur or tie should actually be above. And there's a rule that's really obscure that people don't really think about. They kind of just do intuitively, but if there's an option for the tie to go above or below, it should go away from the middle line. So in this case, this is a slur that is on a note that is above the middle line, so therefore it should curve away from it. Same thing here that we had before. And again, all of these beams feel far too angled. They're too harsh. This one in particular seems a little bit too harsh. Here again, not enough white space there. Get that tie a little bit more curvature. If we really want to start getting nitpicky, get rid of that guy. Angle the beam so that you can get rid of that wedge there. There's no need for that wedge. Like that's the level we could get to on some of these. And this particular version is well done, so I'm going to start pointing out more accurate details like that. So again, lengths, get all the way down. All the way down. Same here. This one I would probably do something like this. You get the point. This is all very nicely done with the triplets. Just be careful when you have these brackets. They're not always, but usually they should match the beam angle, except when they're flat, obviously, like right here. For some reason, these ones are not flat when they should be, because there's nothing influencing them to not be flat. So that's really subtle, but it's a nice little detail. Okay. This is all good. This beam, some of these beam angles are way too extreme. Way too extreme. Okay, good. espressivo again. I want to line those up, right? There's another footnote. Again, preface. Also, these same dotted lines again. It's got the same issue. I'm not really a fan of that. The execution here. Be much better as a much tighter dashed line or a solid line with a hook. I've seen both. I think I've mentioned this in other versions, but again, this clef change should probably go either here or something. Just get it closer to when it gets above the staff there. Here's a real subtle one. This dot should be here. Should be as close as possible. I don't know why these are moving away like that. Should be like that. Always the closest staff, the closest space possible. Always, always, always. Makes it much, much clearer where those dots belong. Okay, now we're back in the Portato land. 2 more pages here. This is all fine. Più crescendo, nice. Now we're in triplet land. Again, the execution of those dotted or dash lines, not a fan of that. Nice to see. There's no 8 VAs here, which is kind of nice. It's nice to see that actually written up in the piano score. Sometimes I'm seeing that with the ABA. This is all good. I think this is fine, keeping the triplets all the way through. But once you get to this point here, starting in 93, 94, there's no need to keep repeating all these triplets. At least in the piano part in particular, because it's just triplets for the rest of the piece. So I would take that out at that point and do similes all the way through. Again, this has no bearing on the performance, so don't put it in here. Put it in a preface. This is nice that it's so high, and it's actually being written up. I think that's nice. It's a little bit hard to read for maybe a pianist up there, but it's fine. It's what the violin part will have, so I think that's legit. If we want to get picky, I probably would put these up. Sorry, that's a triple there. It's a bit messy, but the stem's up there. Because you can get away with it either way here, and this chord right there determines the direction because the G is further away than the C. So I would probably go stems up there for those 2 bars. This is all good. Yeah, the triplets are redundant. They're kind of silly. This one I would definitely just do flat on that one because you've got flat. You've got the flat. The chord keeps going straight through. You could get away with it angled a little bit, maybe, kind of like what you have here. Like definitely that one would be flat. I'd probably flatten all of these, honestly. The ones that are definitely the ones that are like stems up. They would look a lot better with the flat beams. Good, good, good. Okay, going back to the last page. So this is where the triplets get in the way. You've got a huge amount of space here. for no good reason other than to show all these triplets when you really need to get rid of them so you can reduce that space and get these hairpins closer to the notes themselves. So definitely get rid of those, so it gives you a lot more room to work with. And again, flat, flat, flat. Give a little bit more space on those slur tips there. Good. Nice execution of the grace notes here. That's really nice and elegant. This is another one of those, probably should be angled like that to follow the phrasing of the shape of the phrase. Again here, get that stem all the way down. Slur angle, right? Same here. And then it goes right up to the top. I would literally put this one note earlier so that it doesn't have such a gap here. This causes a gap, which it really doesn't need it, when you could just easily put it there. Very nice. I probably would use an 8VA here, probably starting right there and then go through to there, and then another one right there, because this is getting real up there for a pianist. And pianists read 8VAs all the time, so I think that'd be fine. Again, slurs here. Get that guy right through there. These staccatos are floating for some reason. Get it right down in there. There's one here too. Yeah, definitely you want to get your articulations as close as possible. All right. Oh, there's one more here. Yeah, and I'm assuming that's following the default behavior of how Lilypond manages that stuff, but we're really getting into the fine details here of how you would want to really add some polish to this, because this is a really nice addition. You know, it really does a good job of keeping everything really clear, and a big part of that is because this is Lilypond. Lilypond's defaults are pretty darn good out of the box, but they do require a lot of finessing in a lot of places, you know, just like any other notation program. Let's very quickly have a look at the violin part. I'm going to mention right off the top, I've mentioned this before, but you need to mark your page numbers here. So this should be a 2 and this should be a 3, assuming this was a reverse fold situation where this would be on the left side and this would be on the right side. Let's have a look at the staff size here. This should be 7. Good, 7 millimeters. I mean, the main thing I have to say about this is it feels very horizontally dense while not being vertically dense, which is not a great balance. You want to balance those two factors. So I think you could probably spread this out just a bit with, you know, you could probably get 1 or 2 more systems into this part. Let me just quickly count here. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Right. And 2 pages can comfortably fit 20, and it can fit up to 24 systems, because you can have 12 per page. So, but 20 is a really good number of systems. So what I would do with this part is essentially spread it out horizontally by knocking off 1 measure per system. So in this one, I would break it here, and then as a result, I would break it there, and then you just keep going down the line until you have, probably three more systems total that are extras. And that will give you a little bit more breathing room horizontally, and it reduces the great distance between all the staves, which is quite large. Couple other small things. You need an indent here on the first system. Your bar numbers, again, they need to be left aligned, right? Left aligned to the edge. There should be nothing in those margins outside of the staff. You didn't use any 8VAs as far as I can tell, which is probably a good idea for a violin part like this. I would certainly, think that's a good decision. And then there's just various little things that all apply from the piano score. Some of the stems are too short. The slur tips and all that. It's less obvious in this part, I think, just because of the sizing. But you still see the same problems here and there, like right there. There's a slur tip. It's kind of weird. That tie needs to get right in there into the white space. But definitely having a little bit more breathing room horizontally will help a great deal. This tie needs to be flipped there. This slur needs to go all the way across. Only other couple things I see here, some of the alignment is not and that's vertical alignment on these dynamics is not great. But that's just detail work. It's, this is a really, really nicely done edition. Except for those couple of things, the major things of the layout. But I think a lot of some of the other issues will get resolved because of that. That and a little bit of work on polishing it, but yeah, it's very well done. So that's it for this evaluation. Thank you for sending this in, and we will see you in the next one.